Hey, and welcome back to Lang Sweden Cycle, and this is Shop Talk. Today we're going to focus on the top 5 trucks for $5,000 or less. The way the list is going to work is we're going to go from cheapest to most expensive, plus one bonus truck. Let's get started. First truck on the list is no slouch. It's the 1994 to 2001 Dodge Ram. What I have in front of me is actually a Ram SST. This is a special edition truck. It came with special trim, special wheels, and the 5.9 liter V8. It's going to be hard to find one of these for less than $5,000 as they're pretty rare. I'm going to primarily focus on the 98 to 2001 Dodge Rams because they had the quad cab doors, and it makes a big difference to have those rear doors able to open up. Now these Dodge Rams came with 3 different engines. They came with a 3.9 liter V6, which had about 175 horsepower, which would get you up probably a small hill. Now that being said, they're very reliable, along with a 5.2 liter, which is my favorite. That had about 235 horsepower. I've always had good luck with those engines. And the last one is the powerhouse, the 5.9 liter V8. It had about 245 to 250 horsepower. Now Rams weren't really known for their speed, but they are known to work. Now that brings me to the pros. These trucks had solid front and rear axles. They had a true 4-wheel drive transfer case where you shifted it on the floor. The interiors were pretty roomy on these trucks. I like the way they drive. Parts are very common. These are old trucks, so you can get used parts off Facebook Marketplace. So many are junkyards, and that's where you're really going to save some money. Also, in the 98 to 2001 trucks, they're OBD2, which is going to be a common thing I'm going to talk about across all the trucks on the list, because overall OBD2 is easier to troubleshoot, easier to diagnose, and they were more fuel efficient. And that leads me to the cons. These Dodge Ram trucks really weren't that fuel efficient. You might get about 15 miles per gallon, maybe 17 miles per gallon with a 3.9 liter. 5.2s and 5.9s, you'll be happy to get 15 miles a gallon. And aftermarket parts really don't improve much. They might make it sound better, which these Magnums do sound good, but performance-wise, you're not going to gain much. The interiors age pretty poorly if they're not well taken care of, and also these trucks are worked pretty hard, so the transmissions can be questionable. Now this is going to go for every vehicle on the list, along with every used car you're probably going to ever look at. Any poorly maintained vehicle is going to take a lot of maintenance on your end to bring it back. Overall, the Rams are solid trucks if you can find a good one. And let's move on to truck number 2. Up next on the list is the 1996 to 1998 or 1999 Chevrolet CK 1500 Silverado. Now the C stands for 2-wheel drive and the K stands for 4-wheel drive. If you can handle it, I would probably go for a 2-wheel drive truck, as these trucks have been probably less worked than the others, and they have less moving parts, so less risk for failures. That being said, if you're living in the Rust Belt like me, you're probably going to run into a lot more 4-wheel drive trucks, and that leads me to the pros. These were equipped with the Vortec 350. These made about 260 horsepower, and some of the most efficient 350s ever made. They were built for a very long time, deep into the 2000s, in multiple chassis of trucks and vans. I trust them. They are tried and true, just like every other 350 out there. The transmission behind it is the 4L60E, which is the electronic version of the 700R4. They're pretty solid transmissions. Everything else on the drivetrain is pretty solid if it's taken care of. Now the Vortecs also take modifications very well, so if you can make these trucks more efficient or more powerful, I definitely would. You can find used upgrades and used parts all over the place on the internet, and that's pretty cool. You can also find lift kits and wheels and tires. They fit from multiple generations. Also, new parts are even cheaper than a lot of the other trucks on this list, which can save you for potential issues that might come up in the future. Now for cons, people are not giving these trucks away, especially in the Rust Belt where I live, but people that aren't giving them away and they're in good condition, more than likely they've probably been taking pretty good care of it. For $5,000 or less, that's a toss-up. Now these trucks' interiors, they're pretty dated. The door hinges, door latches, most of the moving body parts are probably shot by now. The knobs on the dash, they tend to wear out. And these do have sneaky rust issues both under the doors, under the bed, under the cab mounts. So definitely keep your eye out on that stuff. But overall, these are solid trucks, and they're definitely going to hold their value for years to come. Now, the third truck on this list might surprise you. It's the 2004 to 2015 Nissan Titan. These trucks had a very impressive 11-year run, and in that time, they ran the same drivetrain through all of the trucks. Up in the Midwest, the four-wheel drive chassis is the most common, so I'm not really even going to touch on getting a two-wheel drive truck. Even still, two-wheel drive trucks, like I said, less moving parts, less potential problems. If you can find one and be able to drive it year-round, I'd be tempted to go that way. These trucks had a powerhouse of an engine. It had a 5.6-liter quad-cam V8 that pushed out about 305 to 317 horsepower. I've driven a few of these trucks. It's got all of it. Overall, they had a very impressive higher towing capacity of approximately 10,000 pounds. I'm not saying try that, but I'm saying when they came out, they had a pretty impressive towing capacity. The interiors on these trucks, even in the extended cabs or king cabs, are pretty roomy. Also, with them being newer trucks, they don't have as bad as rust issues as the older trucks on this list, but they still do have their own rust issues. And that leads me into the cons. These do get questionable gas mileage. I would say about 15 miles per gallon is what you can expect, so kind of in the range of all the rest of the trucks on this list. One big flaw on these trucks was their rear axle. 2004 and 2005 were probably the worst years for that axle. Many of them have been replaced, but there's a lot of used axles on the market, and replacing an axle isn't as scary as it might sound. These aren't imports, so repairs aren't as easy and straightforward as some of the American trucks. They do have a complex overhead cam V8, and there's less upgrades and used parts available. Overall, if I had $5,000, I'd definitely be hunting for one of these, because if you can find one in good condition that's been well maintained, these are definitely going to outperform Ram or Silverado of the older generation, that's for sure. Truck number 4 on this list is the 2003 to 2006 Chevy Avalanche. Yeah, you got that right. Truck number 4 is a freaking Chevy Avalanche. But these trucks came with a 5.3-liter LS V8, which are extremely reliable. They came with a 4L60E transmission, and the rest of the powertrain is very proven. One big bonus to Avalanches compared to other half-ton pickup trucks of this generation is these were built on a Suburban chassis. Now the half-ton Silverados and Sierras tend to have frame rust, scary as that sounds. I've seen it on multiple trucks, and sometimes it's very hard to find. These Avalanches tend to have lived easier lives than pickup trucks as well. Also, the interiors are more roomy. These trucks are pretty comfortable to drive. The interior parts are super popular, super easy to repair, and overall, cost to maintain these trucks is generally pretty low. Now cons, you're going to have to tell your friends that you drive a Chevy Avalanche. I'm just kidding. But they are kind of on the uglier end. They have the least cargo capacity as all the other trucks on the list, but they can make that up in towing. I've seen many of these trucks for sale, and people really give up on maintaining them because they just run and drive great. They don't break very often, so when things just wear out, people just let it wear out. And then it's going to cost you more money to get it right. So keep an eye out for that. But overall, these are solid trucks for what they are, and they're right in the middle of that $5,000 range, and I'm confident you won't regret it. Now the 5th truck on this list, the 99 07 GM 2500 and 3500 HD trucks. These trucks came on a heavy-duty chassis. They came with the 6-liter V8, which is what I'm going to focus on, and the 6.6 Duramax. Behind that, they had a heavy-duty transmission, and the whole rest of the drivetrain was all built to work. Now the pros about this truck is they actually drive pretty well for their size. They are most capable for towing and hauling heavy loads. You can find parts for these things no problem. Now cons, the 6.6 Duramax, especially for $5,000 or less, isn't an engine I would target. The 6-liter V8s get about 12 miles per gallon rolling downhill in neutral. That's about the best gas mileage you're going to see, and that's without a trailer. With a trailer, you can expect around 8 miles per gallon. The interiors on these trucks are overall pretty tired. It doesn't matter if you get a work truck or an LT, they're pretty tired by now, especially for $5,000 or less. And they've been probably the hardest worked. These trucks are probably going to be on the high end of your budget, but if you're starting a business or need a bigger truck as a daily driver, these are workhorses that won't let you down, and if you can find a solid one, they hold their value very well. Those are the top 5 trucks I think you can find for $5,000 or less. Now the bonus truck on the list is my favorite. It's the 2011 to 2014 Ford F-150. Specifically, and I mean specifically, the 5.0 liter V8. Pros, this truck made the most horsepower and torque out of all the trucks on the list at 360 horsepower. They're the most efficient trucks on the list. These can get up north of 20 miles per gallon. They're the most advanced trucks on the list. They're the newest trucks on the list. They have a very high towing capacity for a half-ton pickup truck, up to 10,000 or 12,000 pounds, and both the 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive models are very reliable. Behind the 5.0 V8, they have a 6-speed automatic, big beefy front and rear differentials, and a good transfer case. I've seen multiple trucks over 300,000 miles. Personally changed the oil on some with 250,000 miles, and overall, bumper to bumper, they've been very impressive with how solid they are. I've personally seen multiple 5-liter F-150s on Auto Trader, Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace for less than $5,000. So yes, they're out there, and yes, there are decent ones out there. I actually currently own a 2014 with the crew cab and the 5-liter V8. I average about 15 miles a gallon, but I've pulled up to 8,000 pounds and still got 15 miles a gallon. They road trip very well, they're very comfortable, the interiors are super roomy, the heat's hot, the AC is cold, and the 5.0s sound sweet. Now the cons, the very tempting engine, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, can turn into a nightmare. If you haven't seen the cheapest F-150 Platinum in the USA, which is another video of mine, that truck my brother picked up for about $7,000 and had about $7,000 into it before he ended up selling it for a loss. So especially for $5,000 or less, I would stay far, far away from them. These trucks also have their own rust issues, but it's much more manageable than the other trucks on this list. Also, these trucks are the most complex. They're the newest truck on the list, so parts are probably going to be a little bit more than the rest of them, and they're at the top of your budget. But they have the highest resale, for sure. Now my opinion, when you're car shopping, or in this case, truck shopping, I would say drive as many as you can, and buy the one that you're most comfortable with. I had a lot of fun putting this list together and telling you guys about it. Thanks for your support, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and remember, get out there, find them, fix them, and drive them.